It's the very extent. Yeah.
Thank you. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, please note the following. All Bernardsville Borough Planning Board meetings will be held in person in the meeting. (2026). The planning board meetings will begin at 7 p.m. Meetings will be live streamed on YouTube but with no opportunity for public comment on YouTube. Members of the public wishing to offer comments or ask questions will be required to attend meetings in person, apparently. YouTube live streams access for all meetings is YouTube at Bernardsville Borough/streams. This link will also be available on the agenda for each meeting, which is posted in the borough website, bernardsville.gov, and on the Borough Hall public bulletin board at least 48 hours prior to meetings. Notice of these changes has also been emailed to the Bernardsville News and the Courier News, posted on the borough website, and filed with the municipal clerk all on January 22nd, 2026. It's the intention of the board not to continue any matter past 11 be announced at the opening of each meeting. In addition, the board does not intend to begin a new hearing after 10 p.m., nor begin testimony of a new witness after 10:30 p.m. Any hearing conducted by the board is a quasi-judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision. Decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Roll call.
Mr. Grant.
Here.
Mr. Lillian.
Here.
Ms. Geller. Present. Mr. Martha.
Right.
Mr. Morrison.
Here.
Here. Here.
Okay, I saw you put out two sets of minutes, but I didn't get a chance to look at them. Did anyone get a chance? No. No. Okay, we should just defer that then. Thank you, though. Communications, a letter from the DEP on suspected hazardous substance discharge notification. Anything on that? I didn't see it, so
It's about the gas leak on Claremont Road.
maybe.
I think that's what it. Yeah.
And second, a letter from the Borough Clerk on behalf of Borough Council to NJDOT with Resolution 164 endorsed. Prohibiting certain left turn movements along Morristown Road, Route 202. So I guess exiting a property, well, either, I guess both, right? Exiting and entering? No left turn?
Is that no left exit?
It's from the driveway.
Yeah.
It's the name. Oh, the restaurant,
Hoogly.
Walters? The- Okay,
They have a DOT.
right.
Required.
Okay, so they were looking for two access points, correct? Likely there? And now one of them may be constrained not to be able, the exit may not be a left-hand turn. whatever.
This is for information.
Yeah, no, I know. Is anyone, so is anyone here to discuss anything that is not in any way part of the agenda tonight? One, okay. We get two swings at this. This is the first opportunity. This, yeah.
So, Robert Baker. For years, I've been using the borough. We get meetings. Council, on the page, click on that. Whenever needed. This meeting is not good. Let's, these people.
Oh, it's not in the summary, right?
No.
We mentioned
A
that.
lot of people told me about it. Oh, I just want to let you guys know, and the citizen using that website, it should be fixed. It was working, last borough council was posted, I got the farmer's market, it's got the recycling, it's got the styrofoam, it's got every event, so as a user, it's much easier. I know you're posting your notices legally on your public notice, and I'm not criticizing you there. I just want to make the website work, go back to what it was. Okay, thank you.
The meeting is. There happens to be a different debate in both the calendars. I know what you're talking about. There was, that when we're actually looking at other websites.
It's summarizing the upcoming events as opposed to the entire calendar, right? It's the homepage basically, right? And the town calendar.
I think the issue might be in how the meeting is classified in the system. And if it's not connecting to the right classification, it might not be showing up. That's just my hypothesis, for sure. Yeah.
So can we, I know you've got a million things to do. Can one of the things is prior to the meeting, can we be sure that it's showing up on the website? Maybe a check, pre-launch check or something? Because anything can happen. So. Thank you. Anyone else that's here for topic unrelated to tonight's? Okay. See none, there's no new business, right? We have the bills. Review and approve the bills. First, Denise, there were no concerns, issues, rollovers, anything like that with any of the bills. It's clean, okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Motion to approve the bills in $5,622.75.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Ms. Geller? Yes. Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Moyer?
Yes.
Mr. Morrison?
Yes.
Mr. Trainer? Oh, and Mr. Valenciano?
Yes.
Okay. So the next elements of the agenda deal with the Essex building, which is on Claremont, where the large parking lot is on Claremont, and they've had approval to build housing, including affordable, on that. And they are asking, I believe their extension expired earlier this year, and they're asking for an extension. This had come up before, but they weren't present So we've put them on the docket for tonight.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I can tee it up, and we do have
Yeah.
applicants counsel, I know, here as well.
That's fine.
As the board is very much aware, site plan approvals for benefits for a period post final period of 2 years. Section 52A, excuse me, the municipal land use law provides for 3 1-year extensions thereafter. And the applicant has requested, you can make those not, that has to make the request for the extension after the expiration period. And the applicant, I understand, has asked for 2 1-year extensions, which would bring the applicant to January 23rd, 2027, to protect his rights, variances of disappear by tax right. And the applicant would have available 1 more additional 1-year extension, but that's, applicant's counsel is here and is more than capable. We have a client much better than I, so the chair wishes to recognize this.
Yes, and you may proceed.
My name is Rick Borough. I represent Ethics Building LLC. It's an entity with 2 partners, Samuel Suchi, Rossi, experienced builders. They own the Essex Building, which is a commercial building with or a mixed-use building, commercial on the first floor, and apartments on the second, third, and fourth floors. It has insufficient parking. They do own the lot across the street, which is unimproved, although it's paved. It's lot 75, lot 6, lot 76, lot 4 and 5, and 77, lot 5. They did obtain approval from this board on June 26, 2003, to construct 27 units, 5 of which are low and moderate. There are 2 2-bedrooms, 2 1-bedrooms, and 1 3-bedrooms. And those, according to Mr. Pigeon, the borough attorney, are included in the borough's 3rd round COA obligations. I have the developer's real estate partner with me. The reason why the delays occurred were illnesses that the 2 principals, who are in their mid-80s, suffered, that made their ability to obtain financing for the construction of these units difficult. The Essex Building had been vacant because of COVID, and by the time they got that straightened out, they weren't able to get financing. Because of illness, there's no other reason for the delay. As you know, the approvals, they are still permitted to build this project. We're asking for protection from change in zoning. That's the only protection we need. I doubt that there will be any, because this project is committed to 5 units, which is equivalent to a special reason under the law. I have Mr. Reimers here. He could show you the display of the building and explain it. I'd like to call him and have him testify.
No, I'm not sure that that's necessary. No.
The issue isn't what the building is. The issue is that it expired, it took 6 months.
Right, I know that is. I'm showing the benefit to the borough with this development to proceed at some point.
I think we understand it. Your statement is that it lapsed, you've been unable, just what you said, unable to get financing, you had illnesses to the primaries and even their family probably. And so, and you're asking for an extension, which you're permitted to do. And do we have any questions for applicant's attorney?
I just have one question about the continued defense. So perhaps that's.
Well, the key is, and he's meant they can continue with the 5 units, I believe. There are other things too potentially, but it protects them against incremental zoning changes.
No,
So
it's just a statement.
if the units are what? Well, there'd be an explanation. You know, it's third round. When did third round deliverables close? It hasn't, still has been.
Within the plan, proceeding, that for the zone,
Mm-hmm.
approved, even though the third round engagement, my anticipation would be that, relatively brief delays getting to the point of construction. And it would be beneficial if the extensions were granted. It might be a more precarious situation if the extensions were denied and protections were not extended. But that's to the board to decide as to whether or not to grant the extension.
Want to make sure we're not putting the borough in jeopardy and we're not. Okay.
I think the opposite would be true. We don't grant it.
Yeah.
Fair share could say that that would no longer viable project.
I'm sorry, Mr. Board Member DeMarco, and for the benefit of the public.
You said it in there. The point was that yeah. I'll repeat that quite the opposite could be true, that if it's not extended, then the borough under fair share could be at risk to say this is no longer a valid project because we took away the approval. So for that reason, I would grant the approval. My understanding it is 6 months back, right? They're going back to the date it expired. So it's in essence,
Exactly, would be a year and a half ago, was, I think, the approval, or excuse me. So it would be going to January 27.
So the net effect is we're extending it into January 2027
Exactly.
for you to commence construction. So that's the hope and the desire. So I would move to grant the extension.
And we have a resolution to that effect that I'll take that as a motion. Extension request, it's not a public hearing per se.
That's what I figured. I just want to check.
That's one.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, this is effectively 7 months. This gives you 7 more months to commence construction. Where are you with the permit process?
The permits,
Where's the financing? I mean, is this all go to this?
through that.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Is everyone
I'm good.
relatively good to proceed to the next section, which is the Did you get them, Denise?
Yes, I did. Mr. DeMarco?
Yes.
Ms. Geller? Yes. Mr. Gilio?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Malloy?
Yes.
Mr. Morrison?
Yes.
And Mr. Piano?
Yeah.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we're up to the main events. the public hearings on the non-condemnation area in need of redevelopments. And first, we're going to have Steve provide a bit of overview to the public on this process.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, your request and happy to do so. I know I was supposed to be brief, and my response was brief as a relative term, so, but I do want to explain the best I can, and a refresher for the board. And this would apply equally to public hearings that the board is about to have, both on the Church Street and Marshtown Road non-condemnation area in need of redevelopment, as well as the Burns Avenue non-condemnation area in need of redevelopment. I am the planning board attorney. I am not the development attorney. I am not the borough attorney. But as the planning board attorney, and I do serve in a redevelopment council elsewhere, I'm somewhat familiar with the process. And we have our redevelopment and borough planner, Jessica Caldwell, who is presenting the studies as the author of the studies, as I understand it, as opposed to our board planner, Faye, here, so that everybody keeps score and roster. The planning board received via March 23, 2026, the Borough Council adopted a resolution directing the Borough Planning Board to conduct a preliminary investigation of the properties identified in these two separate non-condemnation area study areas, we call them. When the Borough Council does that, the Planning Board, like in for every governing body, planning board for any municipality, is directed to have those hearings. The choice is how to hear them. When the planning board has the hearing, the planning board will make a recommendation. The planning board does not designate an area in need. It's not. They make a recommendation to the Borough Council, and then the Borough Council will act with that recommendation. Whatever the recommendation is, the council may agree with it or not. But it's the planning board's job, I like to see, gatekeeper of the master plan, and they have certain functions. The planning board, this is one of them, having the hearing with the study area to decide whether or not the project, study should say, area development, meets the criteria for designating an area to be developed. That's going to happen. The way it works generally is after the planner makes the presentation of the study, if the study area satisfies at least one, may satisfy more, but at least one criteria under the local government housing law, particularly section 5, well, correctly, then presumably the recommendation will be that it's an area in need of redevelopment, and presumably, but not necessarily, the board will agree. There is a public hearing, so I swear in the planner. I will swear in anyone who wishes to speak with respect to the area in need of redevelopment potential designation for each of the sites. We have received, as I understand it, a few written submissions, which have been passed on to the board through the Florida, our planning administrative officer. So that is the process. Everyone will be under oath when you speak because it is a public hearing. And ultimately the board will, with respect to each, make its recommendation. Yes, it is an area of redevelopment, and that's the recommendation of council, or no, it's not, with respect to each. So hopefully that gives everyone, and that's one step within the process ongoing. The borough, it's not a policy decision. I think that's important to work on because the board knows, but for the public, The board is not making policies. Should a project happen, should it be here, should it be there? How should it be, where should it be, what are the impacts? Will there be financing, will there be pilot payments in lieu of taxes? You know, all those things are not what is within the jurisdictional authority of the planning board for this particular function. It's simply, and I don't want to understate it, but it is essentially simply, after hearing the planner and everyone else who wishes to speak or submit a writing, does it satisfy one or more of the criteria that it falls within under the local development housing law? Does it constitute an area in need of redevelopment or not? That is essentially, if not entirely, the function of the board. Governing body has different functions. This is one step in a multi-step process. So I probably overstated my welcome.
No, you meant one key point. One, I want you to explain to them what happens if we approve and what happens if we don't approve.
If you make a recommendation that one or both of the study areas are indeed areas of need of redevelopment, the governing body can accept the recommendation or not proceed for it. If the planning board finds that one or both of the study areas are not, in board's opinion, satisfying one or more of the criteria under the local redevelopment housing law to constitute an area in need of redevelopment, and makes a recommendation that one or both of the study areas not, the governing body can accept that recommendation or not recommendation. So ultimately, it's possible whatever the board recommends may not be accepted by the governing body. They're not, the governing body is not bound by the recommendation, hence that's why it's a recommendation, not a. But the board is bound to conduct the study and to continue the process once they are directed to do so by resolution in the governing body, which they were on March 3rd.
Yeah, one addition, I'd like to mention that the planning board, although it's stated in the process, that the planning board did not select these areas. They were selected by the council. That's okay, but just the official process is it's supposed to originate at request. It's supposed to originate from the planning board. That didn't happen. Those steps were circumvented, expedited. The town council basically did the analysis and made the preparations, and we've participated already in discussions about these sites because ordinances were changed, et cetera, et cetera. So in summary, the key is in this discussion, in this, we have to realize there's an opportunity to express an opinion in the recommendation, in our recommendations. And there's certainly an opportunity for the public to, on record, making statements. There's opportunities for the press, of course. But the council is not bound by our decision. And I want to be sure that people do understand that. As an example, there was a previous significant application for which we denied in need of redevelopment, but we were overridden. So I guess these projects both have significant public interest, and we have a couple of choices. You're all here. One choice would be to take a motion to postpone these, to not deal with them at all tonight. But you're all here. And that is something we can do. The other thing is it may be that one application is of less concern than another application. We could proceed with that, and we can choose which one to deal with first. Because some of you may say, well, I'm only here to look at that application. As far as I know, and I'm going to ask, there has been no citizens committee formed by the town council to constructively discuss and optimize these applications. Is that, am I just, did I miss something, or have citizens committees been formed on these projects?
I'm sorry, just on here, Mr. Chairman, because the planners are, wondering, but just to be clear, that the nomenclature, they're not applications. They are public hearings that would.
Public hearing.
Monetary need to be thought, but not application, very different. An application for development.
Yes,
and
correct.
definition on the-
Sorry.
Um,
Has a citizen committee, to your knowledge, been created by the council? No? To your knowledge, no, right? Okay.
And just to be clear, I know this is a record, I want to be clear, I know a few times you said we denied, this and that. I know what you mean, but the purpose of the record, we've recommended the denied. As you point out, we only have recommended towards. Well,
I don't think there was confusion in the public spark, but fine, thank you for clarifying that. Okay. So we're here to serve the public, and I want to be sure that we craft this night's activity to satisfy as many as possible, including the that's kind of a quandary for the points that I've just mentioned. I'm going to ask the board if just amongst ourselves, is there any interest in entertaining a motion to postpone this presentations till September when people are back? There's obviously a lot of people here, so they've made a great effort.
In fact, for the record, somewhere in the hallway, and there are, or maybe there aren't people, so please feel free to come in, and there may be a few. How you understand public reporters.
My preference is to proceed.
Yeah,
Proceed.
proceed.
Proceed. Yes. Proceed. Okay, just want to.
Is there, if we open the public hearing, do we have to close it tonight?
Depends on how far we get, but yeah.
Good question, though. What's the answer? The answer is we can carry.
He's not.
Right. And if every one of these people were going to get up and try to speak, we'd run out of time. So, we're allowed to start and carry. Okay, no, good question. All right, so, it's the opinion of the straw poll here on the board that we should not postpone these processes until September. One of them, like, just dramatically more interesting than others? And does the public have any interest in the order in which we handle these two, not applications, these two activities? There's the Church Street area, and then there's the Bernards or Church Street, anyone voted, you'd like Church Street first? I think that's that meant. Anyone who wanted the quarry, Bernards Avenue first? 1, 2, 3. Okay. 4. Like everything Democratic, it gets muddy. Small space. All right. Well, we will follow the agenda then, and we'll handle Church first. And so I think we just invite Jessica to present, correct? Oh, go ahead.
Have one of the hearings, we do have the notices. I wanted the record to reflect that our board, I did notice with a lot of third, evening, this, public hearing. And, the both notices were provided, I believe, the dates, but at least 10 and 17 days prior to receiving the both hearings, was provided on behalf of the board, and I'll swear in Ms. Caldwell, who's standing, keep her right hand raised already. You swear to God with the testimony of God is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. And, obviously, well, I'm on, yeah, I assume planning board will go on with long accepts this professional planner license inspection stated here, the borough planner.
I just want to be sure everyone can hear her. That's all.
Okay, Jessica Caldwell from the record, municipal planner, hopefully you can all hear me. Just so you understand how to present, and I'm going to share my screen, show you the actual setting, so that you have some visual to accompany some of the systems of the properties of the start to share. It's not a power plan, you can establish the actual study the rest of the minutes you can form. So there may be a little bit of jumping.
That was the June 30th, 2026 study.
Yes.
Okay, and that's Church Street, Marktown Road, not condemnation area redevelopment. Correct.
Okay. So this is the study. It is June 30th, 2026. It's for 10 Church Street, Block 66, Lot 10, 8 Church Street, Block 66, Lot 11, 30 Morristown Road, which is Block 66, Lot 12, 22 Morristown Road, which is Block 66, Lot 14, and 1 through 7 Anderson Hill Road, which is a portion of Block 66, Lot 22. So what you're seeing before you on the screen is the cover page of the report. We highlighted in yellow with a Google Earth photo, so you can see all of the lots together in the surrounding area. Just go through. Here's this one shows the blocks over here. So I'm just going to describe the property in greater detail. So block 66, lot 10 is 10 Church Street. It's a roughly rectangular shaped property. You see it's kind of in the middle there, sort of starting in order from lowest to highest. Let's make sure you can see the aerial to see how some visuals. So it's about a third of an acre. It has two-story brick buildings on the property. They total about 3,380 square feet. Roughly 12 parking spaces, 6 adjacent to each building on the property. And in the top building 1, which is the building closest to Church Street, you have 3 one-bedroom apartments. And in building 2, which is furthest from Church Street, you have a clinical skincare studio commercial unit, a small management office on the first floor, and then on the second floor, a one-bedroom apartment. On 8 Church Street, which is block 66, lot 11, so this is our lot. Just south, so north is the top of the page, and south is the bottom of the page. This property is 0.17 acres. It has a, building on, sorry, and the building on the first floor was constructed around 1900. The building on this lot 11 was constructed around 1890. It has 1,800 square feet, and it's, 2 bedroom apartments, with about 4 or 5 parking spaces on the property. 20 Morristown Road, block 6, block 66, block 12, which is on the corner here. That merchant property from the corner of Morristown Road and Church Street. That property is, also about 30 an acre. It has a 2,200 square foot building that the ground floor of that property is an antique store, commercial use, and on the second floor is 1 2-bedroom apartment. On 22 Morristown Road, which is block 16, lot 14, that is just to the west of the corner lot there. That is the location of the Columbia Bank. That was built in the mid-1970s. It's a 2-story frame masonry building, 3,680 square feet with 35 parking spaces. And then going to the top of the study area, or northernmost parcel, that is what we're calling 137 Andersonville Road. It is a portion of the entire library property. Just a portion that's on the westernmost side, and it includes the parking lot to the west that fronts on Church Street, as well as some open space property. This is just under an acre, 0.93 acres. And roughly half of that area, just under about 20,000 square feet, is open space, and the remainder of the lot is parking for the library and borough uses. We go through some of the local redevelopment housing law, tax map, also of the area, showing the study area and lots of block position on tax map. And we also go through the history. And we looked at aerial photos of the site. I also researched Sanborn and confirmed when the construction was roughly built and how the property has evolved over time. You can see in 1930 that their development on block 66, lot 14, 12, 11, and 10 are all developed. However, on the Columbia Bank property on lot 14, that was not the bank at that time. Moving over to the second historic area, the first one was from 1930, and the second one was 1980 and 1987. You do see now that the bank has been constructed. All of the other parcels in the zone, because those were built in the study area, those were built in the turn of the century, in the early 1800s, 1900s. Those are in place, and then you can see going down into the other historic areas that we roughly go into place right around 2000, when the parking area for lot 22 is constructed. And from that time, the study area has been relatively static in terms of development of the area. We also look at land value to improvement value ratio to determine. It's a way to look at the study area to see value. Full economic productivity of the property. And what you look for, particularly in downtowns, is more than a 2-to-1 ratio. But in this case, For downtown, you would want more, but at least a 2-to-1 ratio. And for this study area, you can see that block 10 is the only one needing a 2-to-1 ratio for the land value to improvement value.
But can you just explain to the benefit of the public, the 2-to-1 ratio?
So it's the improvement value to the land value. So what you look for is a higher value for the property that shows an economic productivity of the property. So we want to see at least 2-to-1, but even more than that, particularly in a downtown area of Richmond. So on lot 10, we have 2 structures. So it can indicate a lot of diversity. So we also looked at the link in that area under top. It actually shows commercial services based on the mixed use and what nature of the property. We also reviewed for environmental constraints and we found that there were no environmental constraints such as wetlands, slopes, critical wetlands, habitat, or waterways in the study area. We looked at surrounding neighborhood context of the study area, and on this but to the northwest study area, going south, we have a restaurant, coffee shop, and various commercial uses that are all square. Coming out more south, you have an art, tutoring services, it's promoting one side, and then you have Church Street, you have a bank, and a special service use, and then you have the commercial use. So you're actually pretty close to the center of downtown. We look at the property, which, as you know, has been recently done by the Housing Element Fair Share Plan recommendation and the governing body March 9th, 2026. Rezone the property to H09 affordable housing district for all 5 of the lots in the district. The zone allows for 3 acres, a total of 96 units, with 19 of the senior units. Recently zoned, the property was downtown 4 district, which was 35 dwelling units an acre, and also included a variety of commercial and retail uses. So before I go into so we did we did aerial photos of the drone, and we also toured all of the buildings except for building 2 on 10, and that was because the lost tour and take photographs inside and outside, outside of every building, inside of every building. So this is an aerial photo showing the 1, 2, 3, South facing side of building one off of lot 10. You can see the entrance to, unit B, which is one of the ground floor units. This is the east side of the building on lot 10. You can see some of the dilapidation and deterioration of the exterior, on this one. The portion of the building one on the south eastern side, air conditioning, no air conditioning units, basement upstairs. Also, unit A, window, basically on the south side, you see the upper deck, garage deteriorated, you can see some gardens growing on, some deterioration of the windows. This is a picture of the upper deck on the south side of the building one. The landlord asked me not to go out there, felt that it was unsafe for stand. It's quite a lot of deteriorating. As you can see that the deck is kind of one. Effects of the cracking and deterioration. This is the staircase going down from that deck. Also, quite developing areas. Some of the trim, the windows of building one. You can see chipping paint and deterioration around the gutters. Yeah, additional dilapidation, generation of some of the handrails. This is again on the broken diagram on the top of the another aerial of building one. Facing west. This is an entryway to unit A, building one. See deterioration around the steps. Deterioration around the trim. Building one. Going to the interior of unit A. You have chipping paint and wear around the front door. Here we have the bedroom. A lot of the units, because we have older units, older buildings that are kind of chopped up into apartments, you often find that the furniture, storage, different things are in front of the windows, blocked light. Also sometimes blocked exits, just because of how you have the kitchen here. It's a very narrow, crowded kitchen. Access right here into the kitchen. This is only due to the living area. Example of the exit space blocked by furniture. And the entrance deck. As well. This is the entrance into the B. Showing the on the porch. A very narrow, dark space staircase from the B. Through, you can see where the attic comes in across the door here. And in many of the units, you have a combination of one in the kitchen, because they are quite small, and functionally, older units without lines. So in this case, you have the kitchen. that deck, which is not locked with the attention. Okay. Here's the bedroom and another example. You have a window facing, not very many windows, and you have the unit as well. Hard to see in some of the photographs, but you do have damage on most of the walls and paint. Chipping paint, a lot of mold around the windows, chipping and paint. Here's the entrance to the sea. Again, you have approaching it with wood, entrance rooms, unpainted grants, walkway. Here again is an example of exit route. You can see this is the laundry green and see the quad, there's actually staircase up to the second floor. You have mold and peeling paint on the window in the bedroom. You have cracked ceilings, take that in a minute. And then moving on to building 2, which we, as I mentioned, did not saw. But you can see the elevation as well. That building. Some of the warnings of the exterior siding. This shows the entrance to the management office. Moving on. It's a lot 11. Here's the front of the principal structure on the left. Apartments. You can see the front of the building, exterior of the building. Looking to the rear of the property. You can see the back of the property there. Very few windows on this building structure. There's a commercial sign. We're running. This has a sort of add on staircase onto the side of the building to allow access to the second floor. There is an interior access. This stairway is quite dilapidated, unsightly, and appears to be unsafe. The other entrance to Unit A on lot 11, you have the railing and series concrete on front of the house. You have damage to the wall in the interior. The photograph of the interior, the bathroom. The interior is lacking in windows that are very good with the building. One of the bedrooms. Displaying some crowding. This unit had plaster over an oxygen. So you can see the cracks in the plaster of the ceiling where it was placed over an oxygen. This is the staircase going up. So the upper unit, as you can see, is quite dilapidated. These railings are, it's kind of like copper pipes or something. Put onto the side, very narrow, an unstable access. You can see it's quite steep, going down and quite dilapidated. There's evidence of termite damage on this exterior staircase as well. There's some here, you can see that. This is the entryway area. The bathroom ceiling of Unit B had some serious mold issues and leaking. There's also evidence of insect infestation. Numerous instances of insect traps. Probably inside the units. So wall damage. Structure, to be used, for at least for laundry, and also used to have some residential usage. Structure, well, electrical stuff, and the laundry. I also see evidence of residential self-house as well as water, appears to be some water and water damage. Moving on to block 66.12, the principal structure. You see an aerial photo of that one. This is the antiques. You have to be way to pick a fence on the outside. It's long, interior. We just see the pick a fence again. By the building. There we saw termite on site. We have sewer safety staircase in the fence in the second apartment, showing quite a bit of elevation. The residence sheet on the second floor again has the bathroom dryer, kitchen. The kitchen line and quite small. And the interior of the commercial unit. Now, third, the exterior. Interior of the antique store. Going to the second level of the antique store, have a lot of crowding, rather sufficient office space, very small. The bathroom, to serve units as well. That was sort of the office kitchen. Lots of different block 18 minutes that's on the back. Photo. The extent of the structure is in relatively good condition. In the rear, to see that that's not means. And also once you get in, there are 2 steps down from the so even at the end of the day, we got to step. This is the exterior of the main earthquake. The only restroom is the same from the second level. Have to go upstairs to get to the ADA accessible. There's no elevator in the building. And the restrooms are quite elevated in poor position. You can see the women's restroom there, as well as significant damage in the men's restroom. These are the restrooms that are used by the families. There's some cracking of the walls in the interior on the second floor. And then moving on to the basement of this structure. And this is the second floor office area. Just quite outdated and poor condition. Staircase to the basement, which the pipes in the basement froze apparently at some point and flooded the entire basement and was repaired. The two restrooms on the basement floor are moderate use. You can see that everything was torn out. And this is an exit from going up to where there's some pumps in the basement and also showing issues with water in the same location as we have at the children. This is also some old office space that is no longer being utilized because of the condition. And this is a former conference room in the basement that was like that. So moving on to block 66, lot 7, and to the version of that, it's parking area there. And you can see that it's kind of effective. It's very good. Which you can see here. The way to be example on the front. So. It's properties. The A criteria in the redevelopment found the criteria, starting with criteria A. And that criteria follows general substandard, unsafe, unsanitary, dilapidated or obsolete, or possess any of such characteristics, or are so lacking in light, air, or space as to be conducive to unwholesome living or working conditions.
In that criteria, there are a lot of words with commas, then followed by the word or, and then more words with commas, or being disjunctive. Am I correct that it's possible that one more lots within, all lots within the study area might satisfy one of those many subcategories, and in and of itself satisfy criteria A? It doesn't have to satisfy all of them.
That's correct. So you can have an unsanitary condition, dilapidated condition, or obsolete, or possess any of those characteristics, or be lacking in the air or space. be conducive to unwholesome living or working conditions. So when you're looking at criterion A, the idea about that is that it's a bad situation for the people living in that because of the state of the property. So we looked at obsolescence is a difficult one to kind of wrap your mind around. So we're going to break it down based on real estate professional definitions for what creates something to be obsolescent. So there are three types of obsolescence. There's functional obsolescence, economic obsolescence, and physical obsolescence. Because the redevelopment statute identify any one of those types of obsolescence, any of those can be cases of obsolescence. But functional obsolescence occurs when the form or function of the building no longer meets the needs of or expectations of modern tenants. So examples of functional obsolescence are plumbing, electrical fixtures, inadequate installation, or style, construction materials that require exceptional maintenance, undesirable location, or private layout. Economic obsolescence is also known as external obsolescence. Is an impact on the value or usefulness of the property due to external factors. So something from something happens around the property or to the property that creates an economic hurdle. And that can be from things like changes in traffic patterns, like all of a sudden you get a lot of traffic in the area or something like that, degradation, say a highway was built into something. Zoning changes, construction project nearby, high crane rate, something along those lines. Under physical obsolescence occurs when a property is decline because of the physical deterioration of the buildings on site. And the idea behind that, especially when you're looking at commercial or multi-family use, it has to do with the idea that the property isn't generating enough income to then have someone, an owner, reinvest into that property to bring it up to where it wouldn't be deteriorated or dilapidated. That's called uncurable physical obsolescence for commercial uses. The uses aren't generating enough income to cure that physical obsolescence. So those are the types of obsolescence that we looked at for this study area. And we definitely found functional obsolescence throughout the study area because of the buildings, particularly on lots 10, 11, and 12. All the buildings are built at the turn of the century. We're not into structures, sort of chalk up into pieces, so to speak. And you saw several issues that in the photographs. You also have economic obsolescence because the property has been rezoned, not just through the housing development they're but through the rezoning in 2020 of the downtown core, which looked at up to 35 units to the acre on the properties. This property is definitely underutilized with respect to the economics. And then under physical obsolescence, we saw the deterioration going on in the property. All of the units are occupied, but what it appears to be is that they're not generating enough income to then reinvest in those properties, even the bank property. And so no one sticks the basement, no one sticks those interior bathrooms. And the exteriors of the property and the interiors of the units are all dilapidating and in poor condition. So in my opinion, the entirety of the redevelopment area displays obsolescence. And then you go to the second part, you have unsanitary, substandard, unsafe. As I mentioned, several of the entryways, decks, porches, unsafe situations entering the site, even to the point that everyone want us to walk on some steps. You saw it in the photos. Lacking in light, several units have very few windows because of the layout of the space, furniture and storage, blocks light. And with respect to, the building of the bank itself, you have a great deal of deterioration, not at the main level of the structure, but in the second level offices as well as the basement. For all those reasons, the study finds that the general area are substandard, unsafe, unsanitary, dilapidated, obsolete, and possess at least one of each of those characteristics. And they also lack light, air, and space as to be conducive to unwholesome living or working. Criterion. Diligence or not prayer, or any combination of these other factors, I've documented this out
I can interrupt you again. Well, again, essentially the same concept of criterion B that applied to criterion A. You have a lot of different terms that have different meanings, often followed by the disjunctive or. So again, the criterion B, you do not have to necessarily satisfy each and every of the terms that have meaning. Albeit there may be multiple criteria or some criteria within criteria A, if you don't have to satisfy all of them. That combination, I think, there.
So there's criterion A and criterion B sound a lot alike, but criterion A is focusing on the building and their detriment to the people. Criterion D is focusing on a lot of the same issues, but it's looking at whether or not that's benefit to the community. And it's also looking at buildings and improvements, so it's not just buildings. So criterion A focuses on buildings. So in criterion D, we also focus on improvements to the site. So with respect to that, we already talked about the buildings being dilapidated, obsolescent. We saw overcrowding in the apartments on lots 10, 11, and 12. We also see a faulty arrangement in design of particularly in the bank property where you don't have ADA accessibility. You show physical obsolescence there where they're not correcting issues on the property. And you also have some issues with modernization of the facility with functional obsolescence of the bank. The bank where it's not meeting the modern needs, it's not, it's really set up in the old fashioned for banks. Banks aren't set up in how to that in the study. So accessible access to the layout of the property. Each of the properties except for the bank going into lot 22 in the back have separate entrances. With those, we talked about light units, and obviously layout in terms of the further unit that was built the right. It doesn't need to be being used for very much. If the company the functional way for the public. Also look at the master plan, the goals and objectives of the master plan. This is in Bernardsville, downtown. There are several goals.
Did you just say weekend when you referred to?
I'm referring to, the 2020 background plans element update. And, there's 5 things that we reference in the report. One is to promote the downtown as a commercial and civic center of Bernardsville. 2, to enhance the physical characteristics of the downtown, design, facade, and street improvements. 3, to encourage architectural design that's consistent with historical character of Bernardsville. 4, to create a pedestrian-friendly atmosphere downtown. 5, to provide sufficient parking downtown. Reviewing the state of structures and the improvements of the study area, we found that these properties aren't living up to the full downtown where the community is working on in that downtown. These parcels just aren't serving that purpose, and therefore that's a detriment to the general welfare of the community. Found that the parcels meet criteria in the study area. There's also criterion H, which is designation is consistent with smart growth principles. So the designation of the delineated area is consistent with smart growth planning principles adopted pursuant to law or regulation. So we listed, what smart growth principles are in general: a mixing of land uses, compact cluster community design, walkable neighborhoods, distinctive communities offering a sense of place, and so on. The study area is situated in the downtown. It's a walkable neighborhood compared to existing utilities and services. And the borough of downtown is also located within a Highland Center, which is located in January 2026, with the designation of this area as intended to focus development in the area that's already certified infrastructure. 2025, the just 35 transit village. Also focusing on development near, proposing to focus development near the transit village of Burnsville Station, served by the Gladstone branch of New York City Transit Laws and Accidents. So the Highland Center designation, the transit village designation, both of those has adopted pursuant to law and regulation, promote smart growth, and that the designation of this area would promote those smart growth criteria and goals. There's also a section of redevelopment law called Section 3, which is the definitions, which allows the inclusion of parcels necessary for the effective redevelopment of the area by state. A redevelopment area may include buildings or improvements which on themselves are not detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare, but the inclusion of which is found necessary with or without change in the condition for the effective redevelopment of the area in which they are a part. So the idea is that for some reason, the board or the council were to find that perhaps one of these parcels did not meet the criteria, there's still a reason to include all the parcels within the study area, in my opinion. And that's because each lot within the study area, they're interconnected, specifically on a corner lot with high visibility. It's a 2.5 acre block that would be a cohesive developable area, such that I think all of the lots within the study area could hinder investment and revitalization efforts. For a comprehensive development strategy for this highly visible location in the borough's downtown. So in conclusion, the study found that block 66, lot 10 met criteria A, D, H, and section 3. Block 66, lot 11 met criteria A, D, H, and section 3. Block 66, lot 12, met criteria A, D, H, and section 3. Block 66.
Can you page forward to the grant in your presentation, please? Rather than just reading it. There you go. Thank you.
Block 66, criteria A, B, H, section 3. And a portion of block 66, block 22, criteria T, H, and section 3. Therefore, the study recommends that the planning board make a recommendation to the council with the entirety of the area leasing. A non-condemnation hearing.
Am I correct in my understanding that if one of the criteria under section 5 of the housing law, example, criteria D satisfied all 5 of the lots within the study area, that alone would be sufficient for the study area development?
Yeah.
And if you know, is there a general rule written or unwritten that if the only criteria, section H with smart growth criteria, one might wish to have, if not be required to have, a separate and independent criteria along with it in order to come to the conclusion that a study area may indeed constitute an area immediately developed.
Section H, or criteria A shouldn't be by, it needs to be supported by other findings, or other findings, or other criteria.
Here, section H has with respect to each of the other lots within the study area, at least one separate and independent criteria, if not more than one separate and independent criteria, that leads you to your conclusion that the entirety of the study area constitutes an area in need of redevelopment in your professional opinion as a professional plan and license in the state of New Jersey. Is that the conclusion of your presentation, so that members of the board, members of the public may have questions of the expert, as well as public may public comment, which I would be sworn testimony, so it has the same. For the MC today, the redevelopment attorney's not here. He play that most times. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any comments amongst us on the board?
Not right now.
Not really. Okay. Any comment from our planner?
No, I would,
No's an okay answer.
yeah.
But if you give it, if you sort of got that it's the whole week and not the. Thank you very much. My apologies are progressed.
No, it's all right.
I should have apologized. We generally just have one planner, but we have the benefit part.
Okay, so then the next thing I have is procedural. We have the opportunity to have questions and comments combined, or we can have a questions section followed by comments section. And I don't think any of us care either way, right? How many would like us to do questions first, followed by comments? And how many would prefer to have them combined? One trip to the, great. I think we'll combine them. Denise, I think we may need the 3-minute timer, Denise? Denise, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, at the risk of members of the board, perhaps, you think less will be the name I'm more in. If you're contemplating 3 minutes, is that 3 minutes combined for questions and comments?
No, per
Or
person.
For each?
For each. Yep. Each person. I please, if you're making.
Let's just see how.
I just did.
Not be, that might be.
3 minutes is what I'm going to run with. Yeah, combined. The other thing is, a lot of you must have similar feelings. So if all you want to do is say, I agree, somebody else, he's already spoken, please just say that. I agree, or support that position. Don't read. Fair statement, in which case you may speak on it.
The case what is in chair, not only that instruction, but also specifically speaks to repetition.
Yes.
There not to be repetition, as well as for all questions, relevant, where you get where, what is relevant for this proceeding, not some of the other things that might be relevant for other proceedings.
That's really important. It's really important to keep in mind what we can actually act on, what's before us today. And that is pretty scope limiting. So let's try a few, whoever wants to be first. And do we want them standing at the podium, Denise?
Yes, please, so that they can be
Okay.
recorded.
All right, well, close to the edge. Okay, just stand in front of the mic is what you want them to do. Okay.
Let's put it.
And just raise it a little bit. That's
Each person, please keep your name and address, let me swear you in.
right. So
Your name and address first.
Mary Fran Daly, I reside at 21 Rachel Court in Clinton, New Jersey, and I'm the library.
You swear to God or affirm the testimony about to give us a truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed, questions, comments, or those.
Thank you. I'll start with comments and end with a question. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I offer this with respect. I know public service is not always a thankful job. In reference to the study that was cited, I'd like to counter the idea of obsolescence. In 2025, the attendance at our 17,000 square foot library was over 94,000 people. We track it every day with door counters, and in 2026, we're tracking to exceed over 100,000 visits. This is far from obsolete, and this library is a considerable investment in this town. Some days we exceed 500 people for no apparent reasons. Some days we exceed 800. Some of those days have been Makers Week events, the Green Fair, the mini golf fundraisers, the power and internet outages, and perhaps most importantly, Election Day. There were, in the posted document, there was the idea for a need to redevelop, and Needs in These Directions made assertions that the portion of the lot in question isn't important to the library and downtown operations. I don't know, maybe some of these assertions were bluffing. Maybe some of them were drawn from a parking study that only examined the library lot prior to the library's opening. I think this picture is misleading. I would plead that the parking is important to the library operations. We share this lot, and it isn't exclusively for the library. The coffee shop sandwich board says, park at the library. People do, as they should. More shops are supposed to come with the Palmer development. The parking need is likely to increase. New Jersey doesn't have a standard for how many parking spots you need for a public library, but we're 17,000 square feet. In Connecticut, they recommend five spots for 1,000 square feet. Losing 11 spots would be damaging to our community. My circulation supervisor and I did our own parking study. Before the library even opened, there were only 11 spots open on Tuesday or Wednesday. And then later in the day, when there was activity, there was only 2 spots open in the entire lot during children's story time and leading into the next children's story time. Later that day, when absolutely nothing was going on, there was only 6 open spots. So I already told you about the statute. I would like to encourage you to preserve access to all parking offered to the library and not to remove access through the loss of spots or through any monetary or technology hurdles to using them. They're a critical asset to the borough's public library, which serves all segments of this community through diverse services and resources. We're not a business, but we're an economic asset and we're a considerable investment. And my question is a point of information of what time that picture was taken with just the blue one.
Yeah, so I have been to the site at least 3 other times as well. We did a parking study of the downtown in 2023 in December. We also visited the site in April 24, 2025, as well as this site visit. And we also looked at Google Earth aerial imagery starting February 2020, October 2021, June 2022, April 2023. In all of these cases, we had 4, 5, 17. What time of day? Summer or so.
Sir, one at a time, you'll have your opportunity, you have to.
We did have one we were there December 20. So there's fluctuations, and the idea is that the functionality of the existing parking lot, in my opinion, is not optimal. That doesn't mean that the parking lots in the way it's not going to be part of the future, but it could be more optimally redeveloped. So that I think just by saying that it doesn't meet the criteria because you wanted to remain parking lot, it does be parking redevelopment as well. As the parking is changing for use. And just be clear, the library building is not part of the study area. I mean, you can say parking area in the library is also not.
Jessica, how many parking spaces are in the section that is under the review? You can look it up separately. Let's let someone else come down. Okay, come on down. 13?
Do you know offhand how many are in the main parking lot for the library that are not in the study area? I think that's an important statistic.
What was the number again? I'm sorry.
38
38
are in the study area.
spaces. I'm sorry, not the whole study area, just in the parking, the library lot. 38 spaces. Okay, next.
Next person?
Yeah.
I apologize, Mr. Chairman, I didn't realize the question was in 3 minutes, so I'm doing my best to be quick as possible. First of all, Ms. Caldwell, I'm going to check that everything on the mentioned. Oh, sorry. Carolyn, I'm going to keep on cracking job. I do. So I'll just like, just going to place an objection on the record, everything that you mentioned that's not included in your study. The only thing you include in the study that you've been in the parking lot is April 3rd, 2026. That's the only thing I will be discussing today. It's the only thing fair is that any of us can discuss it. And we didn't put other days here, and the pictures from those other days. The pictures in your study in the parking lot were taken from April 3rd, 2026, correct? Do you know what holiday it was? Correct, it was Good Friday. Do you know if the library was open that day? The library was not open that day. Do you know if the schools were open that day? The schools were not open that day. Do you know if any of the local businesses, due to the holiday, due to school closure, due to library closure, do you know if all those local shops were open that day?
I didn't know all the local stuff, and then you can't take store and
Would you admit that the parking lot would be a lot emptier? The parking lot in question, it would be a lot emptier if the school closed, if the library closed, and if some of the closed that day. Potential for it? Is your testimony that the library being closed would not affect whether or not the parking lot would be left empty?
The lot serves various purposes, so there's for visitors, library employees, and tenants of some of the structures, just development of the so it can have an impact if there are multiple users.
Why would you choose that particular day to take photos if the library is closed to school or closed in your hallway?
That would do.
Would you agree then, though, that your conclusion now that you've learned that the library and the schools were closed, that your conclusion that the parking lot is, I don't want to quote you or misquote you, but that it's empty most of the time? Would you agree with that conclusion is wrong?
Yeah, based on my review also of people there.
Well, but again, I place the objection on the record. I want to talk only about April 3rd, 2026. And those are the only fixes included in your report, correct? At least that's the only date you included in your report. Okay, thank you. Did you reach out to anyone from the library for discussion of these? Are you aware there's some Summit Health Medical Office in that building? Did you reach out to anyone from Summit Health about their use? Did you know there's a Quest Diagnostics in that building? Did you reach out to anyone from Quest to ask them about their use of the parking lot? Did you reach out to Community in Crisis located across the street on Church Street to ask them about their use of the parking lot? Did you reach out to any of the shops in town to ask them about their use of the parking lot? Did you reach out to any of the restaurants in town to ask them about their use of the parking lot? Did you reach out to any of the school districts to ask them about their use of the parking lot? And are you aware that the high school is located fairly close to the parking lot? Again, Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I didn't know that you no more questions. 2 minutes more? Would you agree that, generally speaking, that a lack of available parking can discourage people from using things like a shop, like a library, like a medical office? Is that correct? Would you agree that the lack of available parking would discourage someone? For example, if I went to a library and I see the parking lot full, would that discourage me from using the library? So then when you're taking into account what the detrimental effect on the general welfare of the community are you taking into account the detrimental effect of the community to use this library?
It's not in the study that you're going to use the. Not necessarily the outcome of the study, so just part of.
I'm focusing on the part of the study where you say something is a detrimental effect on the general community. It sounds like the study is leading towards that, something that has a detrimental effect on the part of the community, correct? Because it's underutilized. Correct. I'm focusing on the part of the. I'm sorry, my time is limited. I apologize. Please go on. We'd rather, please go on.
I'm said that there are open space on the property, large systems.
Correct, I apologize. I interrupted you only because I'm only commenting on it, but I do understand there's also that open space. I'm only specifically, going forward, I'm only specifically asking about the you said the parking lot's not intuitive to users in your report, correct?
I believe so.
No, no, you just read
it. Because where it's located, back from the library, and I don't people from the town, sometimes to use that one as well. Here's the beat.
If I was just one last quick question, I know I have to sit down, but given everything that's done today, you did study the law when you been used by the library and everything else. You still stand by your conclusion that is detrimental to the general welfare of the community?
You already sworn, right?
No, I wasn't sworn.
Oh, good.
It was just a comment.
It's Robert Baker, 61 Lincoln.
You swear that or current testimony that gave people.
And not to repeat a lot of what Carolyn said. I'm focused on. Describe why is the parking lot in, antiquated, is the word you use.
If it's an older parking lot, it's deteriorated. It's kind of hidden behind so.
It's not engineering or treatment fault, that is a good fault. Anyway, I read your text, people should read her text, what she wrote. So I represent some of the friends of the library and treasurer, and I'm a citizen, and I go to the library. I walk through that lot every single day, once and twice, all right? So on my guess, it's between 50 to 75% full every day of the week between. I one hour, and it becomes they put speed bumps in the other day. Well, that tells me that interconnected is. If you're coming up Route 202, you can't make a left at Anderson, so you have to go in Church Street. Otherwise, you have to drive all the way around Claremont. You know, having two entrances, as he said, wasn't a good idea, doesn't make any sense for our plan. We need both entrances. There's no street parking if you can't find a place to park. Library, you can't park in any street. That lot, once a day, he gets the train. And the school board tried to get New Jersey Transit to move the train times and get the classroom time. So they need to cut through that, and that needs to stay open to the public so we can make the train. The school is moving up 5 minutes later. It helped that, but they have to run to make class and make. Some days it's so congested, we have FedEx trucks, UPS trucks, landscaping trucks, shredding truck, sterile medical truck. You can't even drive around the parking lot. So in closing, this is vital. This parking lot has to stay. Well, I understand what she's saying about it may not have to be changed for this plan, but it shouldn't be in this plan. There's no point being in this plan for this future development. Thank you.
There's just one comment between this, and that is, I think there are two issues that are raised. There's access and there's parking. My understanding of this project and what we approved is that access will still be part of this proposal. There will still be access from church to the library. It is not being blocked. That's separate from parking, but access has to be provided. Otherwise, the application is got a problem.
Well, first of all, it's not an application. It's
No.
No, stop. It's a study, right?
No, not
It's
this.
It's not a plan, so we're not there yet. Right?
No.
I
Before
understand that, but
Chairman, I think.
I just need to clarify.
Because he redevelopment, I would concur with what I think.
Or not, it meets certain requirements to be redeveloped. It does not redesign the parking lot. It does not eliminate any of the buildings. It does not say that a bank won't be there or housing won't be there. None of that. That is all for later when the town develops a redevelopment plan. I will gladly agree with you that access, parking, and all that stuff needs to be adequate, needs to be protected, needs to be sufficient, not just to support whatever project goes there, but to support the downtown, support the businesses, and support everything else. But we are limited in whether or not, right now, today, and that's
I'm
all.
talking about previously.
It doesn't matter
Yeah,
previously.
it's-
They're talking about today for this
I
year.
understand and I'm comfortable with this.
Will not be developed outside your planning board during, in essence, to simplify it, as much as we might want to consider what might be coming in a potential development project after this board decides whether or not the study area satisfies one or more of these criteria, considering what might be coming onto this property is not part of the relevant analysis.
Today, for this.
Correct. And but
I
that's
know,
what
all
we're
I'm
doing.
trying to do is, and I agree with you, I'm gonna stop, but I just want people to know, now is not the time to worry about access. There's a time to worry, but not this time. And they're two different things. There's access and parking. I just want to make sure both.
But sometimes that's moving towards the quasi. And it's not an application for development. But the board has a certain authority and is supposed to look at a certain set of relevant facts. And what we think might be coming down the road might not be relevant, even though we might want to consider. That might be something to process, but there are attorneys here who might be able to.
All right, thank
I will
you.
hear all of them.
Sorry, Ed.
Diane Reese, 11 Blazer Drive.
These three hour current testimony about to give us the truth.
I so affirm.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't get your last name.
Reese, R-E-E-S-E. Peanut butter fudge spun. This is going to be fairly brief since several library members and involved people have already spoken. But I'm concerned about what will become the eventual use of lot 22 out of all of this. The study itself says primary ingress and egress is off of Anderson Hill Road. Has a traffic study of any kind been done to count the entrances and exits from both the Church Street entrance and the Anderson Hill Road entrance? If not, I recommend that it should be done in order to not fib and say something is the primary ingress and egress. If it's not, Anderson Hill Road is heavily trafficked. It's very difficult to get in and out of that. And anyone living east of the library is going to come in Church Street. And I think it's very important that that data be known in order to correct that inaccuracy if the primary egress is not in fact from the Anderson Hill Road Tinyville entrance, then that needs to be reflected as it goes forward. And I think for safety reasons and so many other reasons, it's very important to make both of those methods of ingress and egress, and I think it's important to know how frequently they're used.
Chris Schenk, 36 Old Army Road. SCHENCK.
Thank you.
You swear to God, or testimony about to give us a pre-vote, they did not know the truth.
That's it.
And please.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'll do my best to stay on track here. I'm going to cover quite a few topics. I've spent quite a bit of time reviewing both the redevelopment investigation, the housing element and fair share plan, and the A&R study that we'll put forward today. I want to be clear that my comments are not in opposition to affordable housing, redevelopment, or transit-oriented development. By no means am I against that report in this specific context. My concern is whether the record before the board tonight provides sufficient support for the findings the board is being asked to make. As stated, there is no project before the board tonight. As you guys are making clear. There's no site plan, no architectural plans, no redevelopment agreement, no pilot proposal before the board. So I want to keep that clear. Glad you made that clear. I think we all need to make sure we keep that clear tonight. But at the same time, the redevelopment investigation, the study that we are talking about for you guys to make this determination, does not appear to include any real traffic analysis any actual parking utilization studies, any fiscal impact analysis, school impact analysis, any infrastructure capacity analysis to any degree. The housing element adopted earlier this year already identified this location and prior, as noted in 2020, for redevelopment designation. Approximately 96 unit concept is what we have shown, right? What I'd like to know is what information did this study produce that was not already contemplated in that housing element and land use reexamination? The report also cites deteriorated conditions, aging structures, visual observation as part of criteria A. Can anyone identify any building code violations, fire code violations, unsafe structure determinations, engineering evaluations, or health department findings that support those conclusions beyond visual observations? What quantitative evidence exists that these properties are legally or structurally deficient, rather than simply older buildings requiring maintenance, and probably a visiting from somebody in our town to make sure that they are compliant with housing codes? Finally, many of the concerns residents have raised over the past 7 months and even years, as you well know, involve traffic, parking, infrastructure capacity, public assets, and the broader community impacts. Yet those are precisely the areas where I didn't find any supporting analysis in the record before us tonight. Good planning is built on understanding these problems, evaluating alternatives, measuring impacts, and weighing the trade-offs before these decisions are made. Yet constantly, Bernardsville and its residents are often asked to react to these proposed solutions before underlying impacts have fully been quantified. Appreciate your time this evening. I really hope we take the time to learn the details, the real metrics and real data before we start creating more problems for ourselves.
Jeffrey Hammond, 18 Flintlock Court.
Now you're good.
Please raise your right hand.
I do.
Yes, do you swear to God or refer to the testimony about the giving truthful?
Yes.
Thank
No, I'll be brief because everything I was going to say has already been said. I do think that some of the comments were based on opinion rather than fact. For example, say that the bank is, quote, set up in an old-fashioned way, and, quote, well, any bank that still has tellers is an old-fashioned way. So I think that's an opinion, not a fact. I think many of the opinions were set up, particularly as they pertain to the bank and to the parking lot of the library, to include them into a broader picture in order to facilitate development in that area. There's no question that the three turn-of-the-century buildings, the residential, are disgraceful. That's a zoning problem. The landlord would be held to account. That doesn't necessarily mean that the greater area of need of redevelopment should pertain to the bank area and to the library parking lot. I think it is disingenuous to say that we can't guess ahead as to how that parking lot would be used. One question I have here is, or actually my comment, I should say, had to do with the open space, which is the portion of lot 22. So that's borough owned. I know for a fact, because I sat on the council in 2019, 20, and 21, that we looked at that property for the potential for a pocket park. I want to make a comment as a member currently of the Environmental Commission and chairperson of the Green Team, that not every open space has to have an economic purpose. And to say that, what was the word that was used, that it was underutilized, that ignores the purpose of open space. So I think that really makes this whole study flawed in regard to the parking lot and to the portion of lot 22. Thank you.
Jessica, my understanding is that lot, which we're talking about, the parking lot, is in fact deed restricted. Half an acre of it is deed, not half, half an acre. It's deed restricted and cannot be developed. The
Open space.
The what? No, there's a deed restriction on it. There's literally a deed. You know, I'm not saying it shouldn't be included. I'm just saying I believe for a fact there's a deed restriction on that particular piece on the, I guess it would be the north side of the driveway. And although it's included in the study, actually nothing could be built on it. All right, proceed.
Michelle Conover, Conver, 16 Burroughs Avenue.
Raise your right hand, you swear to God or affirm testimony about me.
I actually had a question about a few things that Chairman Graham said. Am I allowed to address something that he said? I just want some clarification, like clarification type thing. Okay, so. Coming up with these redevelopment initiatives, I'll call them. And you said that the areas were selected by the council.
Correct.
But you said it's supposed to be initiated by the planning board, but somehow that got circumvented.
Yes.
So my question is, was this process done properly, in your opinion, then? If the planning board is supposed to be the initiator and they were not, and the council was the initiator,
Right.
is this the proper way to even have this plan come before you?
Well,
Both of them.
And.
Go ahead. You can answer.
Respectfully, it's my understanding, again, not at least on the council, attorney, but as planning board attorney here. These study areas certainly can be chosen, quote unquote, by the governing body in their resolution directing the planning board to have a hearing to decide whether a particular study area or study areas is another one, something actually, are the areas in need of redevelopment or not. So short answer is, my understanding, the governing body did it correctly, irrespective of whether respectfully our chairman agrees or disagrees.
Add to
I'm
that.
gonna get some time back, right?
Yeah, this is. It's that.
Yeah.
It's that.
I think it's important for the public to also understand that, I'm gonna put this in the layman's terms, but we're here predominantly because of the state's affordable housing situation. You've been forced, like all other municipalities within the state,
Except for us.
to figure out, right, but to figure out where you can put more housing, because we have a lack of housing. Okay, and part of what was in the fourth round laws was also to find areas that can be redeveloped. Okay, and so I may or may not be stepping out of place here, but hypothetically, a lot of towns went out of their way from a municipal governing body perspective to find areas where they could be redeveloped, in addition to a lot of other areas and a lot of other criteria. And what identify areas that could be rezoned in order to capture more housing within the municipality.
Boroughs have an obligation for having fourth round, right?
Correct. So while it wasn't this board's specific, I guess, or it wasn't them who was, finding those areas, because it was a municipal governing body who found this AHO-9 and AHO-10. I just want you all to understand that there are a lot of moving pieces which came to, fruition in order for the specific redevelopment area to be identified. You can identify areas through a master plan reexamination process as well. And that is typically when the planning board would identify areas that are appropriate for things to be redeveloped or for affordable housing, for example. And I think that might be what the chairman meant when he said that the planning board is typically the one who finds places.
Yeah, it's just the first few phases are, it's a good example. If you did a reexamination at that time, you would be, one of the objectives would be to identify future opportunities for space. It kind of just, due to the pressure that's applied by the state, it just sort of kind of started in the middle. I don't actually have a problem with it, starting in the middle. So I think that was what.
To your knowledge, has it happened like this in the past with other areas that have been declared redevelopment zones?
Well, I'm gonna.
Yeah, it's kind of out of the scope of this, but.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so then,
But to answer that question, traditionally, the municipality makes that decision, meaning the council, mayor and council, traditionally in almost every town, makes that decision and sends it here for the hearing. So, and then it goes back to them. Right.
Idea. That's okay. So I would also then just like to make a comment about the citizens committee that you mentioned, because I personally, I've been in this town for 24 years, but I also went to Borough of Bernardsville, so I've been in this area for almost my entire life. And one of the things that I do find is that the citizens don't feel like they're involved. They don't feel like they're given the opportunity. And if there's a way to pursue that with you guys or the council or whatever, I would love to have that be in the future. Any other types of these types of things, because I think it's a valuable way to get the public involved and also allowing us to feel like we're kind of have a say in the future here.
I would say go to the council meeting and suggest it. But my rationale is somewhat selfish because I don't want to have to spend 6 meetings into midnight fixing developers' plans that need to be repaired with 100 odd, things. That we ought to be able to solve those structural, operational, design problems before the plane gets to us so that we can just handle minor exceptions and whatever. And that's not what typically happens. And I would encourage the town to impress upon the council that you would like to have citizen participation in the brainstorming for these, ultimately, these applications that aren't baked yet. They're still being constructed. It should not, in my opinion, just be between the developer and the town. And it should be the citizens that are involved in this. But the right approach is to go to the council and express your own opinions. For now, but there's just so many people here that have, okay.
Right, where we got a word from. And right, comments or vote.
Comments. We're town, just in the 10,000 feet. I think everyone knows where the parking is. I think that's a very good comment that you made, that people don't know where the parking is. Second thing is Columbia Bank is a special place for the community. I don't know how many of you know that they give a lot of donations to nonprofits. I actually banked with 2 nonprofits there just because of this. Because I'm older, the manager was really nice and said, anytime you need something, just text me ahead of time, I'll come up. I said, I'm not fine, I can down and get in there with no issue. That bank has employees that will do anything for anyone. This is a rarity in this game. So just to say that their ramp isn't good for someone who's older, or that they have all these insulation problems, maybe we all could help them because they give thousands and thousands to nonprofits. God bless them.
Mary Hazelton, 397 Minebrook Road.
You sort of got all three.
I do.
Yes, this is-
I'd like to start with a question for Jessica. We were all subjected to a litany of photographs of deteriorating conditions in several of the buildings, both the board and the members of the public. Would you say that having the buildings get to that condition and having those issues is something that should be corrected and by the landlord and should not have gotten to this point?
That's not how we in the study, and one thing I mentioned under physical obsolescence, one of the issues is that the properties aren't bringing in enough money to them to cure the issues that are happening.
I would
When they
suggest
are-
that that's an opinion. I'll let you finish.
When they are doing continue to improve, fix, renovate. And when you don't see that, that's what it's about, is when there's stagnation of the property, are not going back into the property to cure those issues. The redevelopment law offers other tools to help incentivize reinvestment. And that's what it's about. It's not about whether we try to force to cure the unfulfilled issues.
I'm not getting to speak much in my time.
We have to start on you're okay.
We have, but we can restart again.
Could you see could you see that having category A really presents a perverse incentive for landlords to not take care of their properties, because if they don't, they could then have an area in need using just that one category by letting their property deteriorate. We've been here before. We have had areas in need before. We have had the planning board say no to areas in need before because of parking striping and minor issues on the outside of buildings, and had that overturned by the council. So I feel like there is a perverse incentive in category A, and that many of these things could be and should be fixed by the landlord, and we should have inspections. I'm getting inspected with my garage apartment every single year. I could never be allowed to allow things to get that way. There's evidence of stacking. It's illegal to have people living in the basement. That's all a borough issue and should be addressed. And on top of that, I'd like to make a statement. The woman in blue said that everyone from the east would be using the Church Street access to the library. I'm going to tell you that everybody in the west is using the Church Street access to the parking lot as well, because I live in Twin Lakes on 202. When I come up, I can't make a left turn at Olcott Square. So I go through the light and make a left on Church and a left into the parking lot. If I didn't have that access, and it seems to me like that lot sticks out like a sore thumb. It's not related to any of these other lots at all. It doesn't belong to the same person. It belongs to the borough. And if I didn't have that access, I would have to turn on Quimby Lane and then on Mill Street, and then make an impossible left through the traffic on Anderson Hill Road, hang a quick right into the parking lot that would probably be filled, which would be filled because many of the borough offices are there. So east or west, we have to have that for our library. We need that parking and we need that access. We need that for our high school as well, and our high school. So thank you very much.
Smith, 150 Mount Harmony Road.
Where you got a permit, definitely about to get people, most people not.
Yes.
Thank you, please proceed.
So two quick questions. One is, right next to the firehouse, is that low-income housing being built, that ugly structure? Is that it?
Yeah.
That's a hideous structure. Okay, and what is, across from the playing field, so what is that building. Is that more low-income housing over there? Yes, it is. I grew up in Bernardsville from the time I was 14. I moved back years later, so 69, so a lot of years here. I don't agree with this fair share BS. I'm really disgusted with all this low-income housing, and I want to make a comment. In 2016, when Trump ran it, he said they're trying to wreck our zoning in the nice areas, and I agree with that. They're trying to change the flavor of our area. The traffic cannot handle it. The traffic is hideous when I come in from working in the city, you can barely get through town. We're going to put 101 units in that area. Are you kidding me? So I think it's a travesty. I'm not for all this low-income subsidies. I'm 69. I'm going to be paying for all these people to have breeders, to have more kids in the school, and my taxes are going to keep going up. I think it's a travesty, and I want it for the record. I'm disgusted. I'm going to probably have to move out of this area.
Use everything. You swear to God or affirm this testimony you have to give us the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Thank you, please. So I have, I guess, a comment and rhetorical question. Is that just in terms of comment, I guess I'm looking at this a lot in terms of comparison, and I take Ms. Fahey's comments to heart about, the big picture, what it is that the gun to the head, so to speak, of both the council and to the planning board to some extent as well. If you look in the 2025 Housing Element and Fair Share Plan, in the proposed mechanisms 4.3, section 4.3, there were 4 areas that were identified. There was the quarry, 65 Claremont Road, and then the 2 that are before the board this evening. And I think we can all agree, and you can see from the testimony and the comments we've heard tonight, that nothing studies as anything is unoccupied. It's all being used. It's entirely occupied. It's these apartments are people's homes. There are families living here. There's a small business, a bank. You've heard a lot about the parking. I remember the Columbia Bank, I think, was a trick-or-treat site a couple years ago. The trunk or treat, rather, is a community space. And I don't want to repeat, but just sort of fully endorse Dr. Hammond's comments about the open space and the importance of that woodland that's right there near downtown. So just in terms of comparison to the other areas that the council has designated as being of interest for the affordable housing quagmire, I guess is the best word I can think of politely. This is a real outlier, and I think that has to be considered. And then in terms of comparison, my rhetorical question is, in my day job, I've seen quite a few of these redevelopment studies as well, and I'm always frustrated by the lack of what I'll call comps, right? Someone said during the presentation, oh, it's dilapidated, and I heard, compared to what? Compared to what? And I don't fault Ms. Caldwell, I don't fault the process, but it is frustrating to look at this study and these criteria in A and D are so subjective, and there's nothing compared to what, it's chipped paint. I heard the word chipped paint several times. So the only thing that seemed to have any sort of standard to it or definition was obsolescence, and that was very, very fuzzy. So I strongly encourage and urge the planning board to be exacting and really take a look at this and think about these criteria and whether they apply. Thank you.
I do. Thank you. Just want to go on the record quickly. I've been here a bit, maybe more than most, maybe not everyone, but in this town we've been here for 13 years, and seen some disheartening things, but a lot of good things as well, especially at this board. But one of the most disheartening things I've seen is at this board tonight, and it makes me really sad. And that's that. That's not much. I think it's embarrassing that our council does it. plan to run out the clock on public input. Your public service, you said it, Mr. Chairman. It makes my heart sink. Anyway, I don't, you have a 30-something page report exclusive of exhibits, not anywhere near possible to address the questions that this, very serious questions that this hearing tonight is supposed to address in that amount of time. But I'm going to, I guess, skip questions and dive right into comments, which I don't have time for. But quickly to Ms. Fahey's point, yes, part of the round 4 plan is identifying redevelopment areas. But we need to be careful with terminology we use. When you say redevelopment, it's small r, redevelopment. It means there's something there, we're going to put something else there. Does not mean area in need of redevelopment, because you can't pass a statewide statute that says you need to identify areas in need of redevelopment when there might not be areas in need of redevelopment in your town. There are very specific statutory criteria that you need to meet. So they're saying you need to, hey, focus development, no more sprawl. Don't take these massive estates or farmlands we see in some of the portions of the state, and create town developments like with Pulte down the road. You can take your sewer service area and build up, and that's fine. And that's what we did. And so I was part, unwilling, but part of the round 4 process. And we presented, the borough, not me, the borough presented to Fair Share, to the developers. Hey, they wanted a settlement, they whacked out a settlement, and they said, here's what we're going to do. And it is. It's that, 96 units with 19 affordable. I'm not sure that the final agreement said they had to be age restricted or whether it was they may be age restricted, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, that we said we would do that. The court entered an order saying you need to pass resolutions, zoning that implements the requirements that you agreed to in your in your Fair Share settlement, in your plan. May I continue, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you. And we did that. The board reviewed it, and you said, okay, here's the implementing ordinances. They're in place. They're the H09 ordinances. They're in place. The court, we submitted, Mr. Pigeon submitted it to the court, said, Judge, in fulfillment of our obligations under your order and under the Fair Housing Act, here are the resolutions that implement our agreement that we need to do to satisfy our constitutional affordable housing obligations. The court looked at them, said, great, that works. Here's your certificate and judgment of compliance and repose. You did it. H09 is in place. This is superfluous to that. You don't need to say it's an area in need of redevelopment or not, because it's going to be redeveloped pursuant to that, that zoning that the developer agreed to. This is, what we need to develop this property. No more financial incentive needed. The market rate units will subsidize the 20% affordable that we need to set aside. That was settled. That was agreed. That's it. So, in Ms. Caldwell's report on page 2, she cites the local redevelopment housing law and the purposes thereof. And it says, provide a process for addressing the underutilized, untenable, vacant, and abandoned properties that without public effort are not likely to be corrected or ameliorated by private effort. We've already found out, a judge has said this is going to be redeveloped, or redeveloped, small r, pursuant to your zoning that you have in place. The local housing redevelopment law, this turns it on its head. The local redevelopment housing law was passed so that communities could find blighted properties, as it used to be called, and say, you know what, look, nothing's happening without this. We need to have some government intervention, massive government intervention, serious government intervention, long-term taxpayers, 30 years, giving public property to private owners in order to allow for these developments to happen, because if we don't, they're just going to continue to deteriorate. Everybody's going to get, it's going to be detrimental to the whole community. It's bad news. So this is a solution looking for a problem. we're looking for the tax breaks. We're looking for the ability to give away property without public bidding. And so how are we going to do it? Well, the only way you can do it is through an area in need of redevelopment designation. And so you're trying to nail a square peg into a round hole, and it's absolutely contravenes, is the opposite of what the local redevelopment housing law was supposed to do. You're taking a property that does not need any additional incentivization, as you know, there's already been ruled, and saying, well, here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to lease and convey property without having to go through public bidding, grant long-term tax advantages, abatements and titles. It's really, I think, perverting and abusing the local redevelopment and housing law in a way that it was never intended to do. I guess I'll stop there. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention.
James Kavanaugh, 36 Maple Village Court.
You swear to God or affirm testimony about to give this truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Please proceed.
Nice going later. There's a lot of other things I was going to talk about I've already been mentioned, but I do still have one question. With all the building that's going on currently, the 3 new housing developments and then this potential for it, how's our sewer system going to deal with that? And the rest of our infrastructure.
These are rhetorical questions, right?
Yeah.
As mentioned, the sole authority that the planning board has is to decide whether or not based on criteria of local development housing law, particular study areas that's directly to the family, it's satisfied one or more of them. That may be a question of the governing body, another night, or even tonight, perhaps.
And again, what comes up is when we first started the presentation, it sounded like it was mostly economic. We weren't making enough money for that property, and then after the presentation, it was a non-condemnation presentation. After listening to everything that was wrong with everything, I was not coming down and bulldozing. I think when we do see a project, we have a firm hand of exactly why and what we want to try and accomplish. And the reasons. Is it because we need retables, or is it because these have become uninhabitable and not able to be maintained? So, I think there's, as we said, there's probably a lot of work to do with that.
I would listen to Steve and raise your question about sewer, long-term sewer planning with the council directly. They have to deal with it all the time. There are lots of expenditures that they've gone through recently. So they would have a good handle on what they've done. They would just know. So.
Would you like to come up with
Julian Kavanaugh, 36 Maple Village Court, Bernardsville. Yes. I guess my frustration is who's protecting. My frustration is who's protecting the citizens of Bernardsville. We have an aging population. We have been here for years. I could see a developer looking for a lot of money and the taxpayer having to put the bill for the sewer system, the water pipe and the improvements. It's happened time and time again. If the library loses those spots, if Summit Health leaves, Quest leaves, that's detrimental to our community. There's so many empty business spots throughout the area. They're going to just go somewhere else. They're not going to put up with no parking. And I find it almost fraudulent that days were picked to do the studies when businesses were closed. I mean, we're not being honest or fair to the citizens of Bernardsville. We've worked very hard to make this a wonderful community. That high school depends on that parking.
If you have a play at the high school, we need that parking. If there's games, we use that parking all the time. This is part of our community, and somehow, some way, to make 20 spots of low-income housing, we can put 20 apartments there, just put 20 apartments there, and that's it, and call it a day. We meet our requirement. You know, why do we have to have 100 units to have 20 units?
I'm gonna play devil's advocate, just so, I just I also wanna talk about the
Chair, with the chair's permission, certainly.
Evan speak, explain.
It might be outside this program.
Okay. If you're concerned about, and your husband's concerned about the sanitary sewer, and I wanna make everyone aware that I don't disagree with anything that Mr. Duff said about, the way that this law was created, in terms of the tools that it was supposed to bring about and the way that it is require of a developer as a part of this tool. And that is done through what's called a redevelopment agreement.
Citizens.
Well, I would hope that the municipal governing body would do that for you, but that's something. There's more power given to the municipality through this law to ask things like that of the redeveloper. And that's all I wanted to just bring that to the forefront for everybody.
We're spending an awful lot of money for 20 low-income housing.
Well, and to that, the thing about that it's a redeveloper, unless it's a 100% affordable redeveloper, like you have with the property across the street and the other two properties that are being developed, the redeveloper isn't gonna come. Yeah, the only way that can make the program work is if you have a lot more market rate apartments to pay for the
The center of town is so crowded, you can't get through.
I just want
110 units is just, it's not a legal amount, it's a full.
It is.
Our neighborhoods on that. And this is not a legal amount of cars and traffic. I just don't think it's gonna work.
Yeah. I don't think so. I'm sort of maybe
Okay, now, either one.
So, Lindsay, 135. Hello, Lindsay.
Already got our permit testimony back here, speaking of it.
Yes.
Please proceed.
So building on what he was saying about kind of this designation, in my experience, and I came from another town, I left that town because this kind of thing is happening, constant redevelopment, being forced upon us because of low-income housing issues. In my experience, what I found is redevelopment designations are used by developers to remove the zoning restrictions and protections that keep the town the way we want it to be. And it's often kind of a bait and switch situation where we agree to remove these protections by designating it that way before we know what's planned. And that's on purpose. They don't want us to know what's planned beforehand. So we remove the restrictions that would keep that from ever happening. And then what ends up happening is, once those restrictions are gone, developers come, they propose things that none of us would like, and would have gone against right from the beginning. And then it becomes a negotiation sometimes. The developers in I've seen this time and time again. I literally left my last town because of this. I was fighting constantly. I hired a lawyer. I hired environmental people to fight this thing and stop things like this from happening. But this is the bait and switch that we're looking at right here. Is let's designate it first. Don't worry if it's going to come in here, and then don't worry, it'll be great. And then all of a sudden, it's not great. It's exactly what we didn't want to happen, and that's why those restrictions are in place to protect us at the beginning. Okay. The next, I will ask a question here. So, Allison, obviously we do have some pressure from the state. is there anything we can do, and it's my last point the same way, we had tons of low-income housing, but it wasn't designated low. Is there any way to say, hey, we have tons of low-income housing, 4 families, have to do a house, 2 families, is there any way to solve this and say, hey, let's figure out how we're gonna be able to designate some that exist today, and constantly building more low-income housing, because it doesn't currently fit the definition. Is there any way to change the definition of some of the housing we have?
A qualifying affordable unit, there are a lot of criteria. Short of walking you through the housing plan.
Have you considered that? Are we working towards that? If we have ongoing housing designated, we can do that. Yeah, you're our planning partner, right?
So, the minority of the housing council, nor the governing body, nor are we about, are we addressing at least directly the responsibility of the planning board in this one function, which is does it or does it not meet one or more criteria?
In any way, trying to find ways to not have to build affordable housing because we would have ones in it.
My understanding is part of the fourth round plan was payments to keep some affordable housing as affordable. So we built affordable housing years ago. That time period had expired, and I think part of the plan was to repurchase, right? Right. Correct. So we have existing affordable housing by the Rite Aid and the CVS, right? That time period of affordable housing has like a 30-year time period or a 20-year time period. They will come in off, and if we didn't move to extend it, they would no longer be counted. So the town did do a great effort, and we will pay for that, right? We'll take that developer and we'll say, hey, keep them, keep them affordable, but didn't come with any market rate. It doesn't come with any set aside. So that effort was done by the town, to your point, to try to keep. They're working through that process, right? They have to buy the credits back from the person who owns it. So, but that is part of the plan. Okay. Correct. Correct. So they still have to
execute.
They still have to execute. But to your point, they took the affirmative step not to lose some, because then they would have to make up more. Yeah.
Most of the affordable housing, yet we were forced to build affordable housing. And no one came to care. I'm just gonna do a quick. Go ahead. So just statement, I have a group of doing this small fraction of the yard. The house is older, it probably has some peeling paint. And I think by their logic, they would say, oh, it's considered underutilized. Well, I bought that house for a reason, I wanted an underutilized land. I didn't want the house because of my power problem, right? And that's the environment I moved to this town for, and I think most of the people who live in the town like the environment the way it is. So pulling that underutilized, because it doesn't fit a high density definition of maximizing the use of land is I think, a ridiculous. Thank you.
My name is Christy Lamagna, 133 Claremont Road, Bernardsville.
Swear to affirm that testimony not to give the truth, well, truth and nothing but the truth and hello.
Yes, I do, thank you. I will be brief. I feel like tonight was a presentation on code violations and a need for the slumlords to take care of their buildings. I think it's ironic that in order to improve and maintain the historical nature of Bernardsville and its charm is that we're going to remove homes that were built in 1890. So we're going to preserve the historical nature of the town by tearing down homes that were built in 1890s. If the criterion that were demonstrated in that proposal represent homes that should be torn down, I have to be honest, I think most of our homes would be torn down. I have moss, I have peeling paint, and there was a bug in my kitchen today. I'm struggling with the fact that, and I'm going to try and quote you as closely as I can, lack of repairs could be evidence of an inability to reinvest in a property. I'm curious if if that landlord has any money in his bank or if he's just choosing not to repair something. You speak with a tremendous amount of confidence and conviction, yet almost everything you said tonight can be easily contradicted and was actually opinion based on an outcome you're hoping will be in your client's favor. So you can be very forceful. That doesn't mean what you're saying is actually truthful. And I find that offensive.
Second round for anybody, if they want. I don't want to suppress anyone, even Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May sworn in. Thank you. I just wanted to, because I didn't get saved before, is the moral hazard concern, but the last speaker and Ms. Hazelton, I think is a really big concern here. Like the purpose of planning and zoning and what everyone up here volunteered and is on this board to do is to help our town improve, right? Like use the expertise that you have to, aid the borough in, making the downtown, making the whole borough a nice place to live. But when you have situations where, and these are all code violations. I have the property maintenance code, chapter 11, and you have prohibited conditions. I'm not going to go through them, but obviously you can't have insect infestation. You need to keep your sideways steps, driveways in good repair. You need to not have peeling paint, broken glass, missing substantially, Ms. Caldwell has been out to this property now a few times, like she said, from 2024, 2.5 years ago until now. And you have the landlord who's going with you saying, don't go out there. That's dangerous. You're like, come on, don't be crazy. But that's his property that he's letting people live in. And the report that you wrote back in 2024, January 2024, you delivered to the borough, the borough administrator, you delivered to the council, and you cited evidence of unsafe, unsanitary conditions, not commensurable with wholesome living that are detrimental to our community. Did anyone from the council, from the administration, did you advise the zoning officer whose job it is to make sure that these property owners are providing livable space for Bernardsville residents, our neighbors? Like, how is that allowed to happen? And then to come back, to 2.5 years later, say, oh, it's still there. Well, yeah, because nobody told them to do anything. Nobody called up did anyone even say, hey, Mr. Reynolds, Mr. Kohler, hey, your property's, it's unsafe for the people who live there. You told me so yourself. Can you fix it? And why? Because then you wouldn't have 33 pages of why this needs to be a, area in need of redevelopment. And, again, the condemnation, not condemnation, and that's why this is just, it's an abuse of what the law was meant to do. If this was a condemnation area in need of redevelopment, it wouldn't be me, it would be their lawyers coming in, stomping their feet, waving the papers and saying, are you joking? And you bet that property would be shit-baked before your hearing. But when it's a non-condemnation area in need of redevelopment, they got nothing to lose. They can sit back, you open the door to big tax breaks, it's a pilot agreement, it's a moral hazard. You're incentivizing people who are supposed to be taking care of the people who live in their homes, in their rental units. You're subsidizing them to make those properties unsafe, unsanitary, unhygienic. So that you're encouraging your borough to do that. So then they get massively financially rewarded, 30-year tax breaks worth tens of millions of dollars. And so the borough council can take the pilot revenue and change the school district. Sorry. I got Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for the information.
Can we ask the second question?
Yeah, you can, he's got something.
Again, again, my name is Chris Shank. And thank everybody for their input today. Thank all of you on the planning board chairman here for obviously taking time tonight. I know this is an intense issue. I may cover some stuff that I think we've already discussed, but 3 points that I think came up today that I really, again, just kind of want to talk through. Again, I think, as has been mentioned by many people, your expertise is what we rely on. This board obviously comes to us with that foundational knowledge that we rely on to make these decisions, to help us, guide us, make these plans. Obviously, our great attorneys over here. Allison, you had mentioned, I think, there's a great word, understanding, right? Understanding complexities of the affordable housing is extremely challenging. Most individuals around here do not come prepared with the amount of paperwork that you have in your hands, right? The amount of just details that you have to find. And I think that's what we get so frustrated. And you even, Mr. Chairman, alluded to was the process that is in place for so many of these issues is a challenge for even you, right? The framework isn't there. And I think that that's what we all react to, all right? I know Mr. Slocum talked about it, right? Understand what it all means. And I'm not saying that we're gonna find that out in a 2-hour session here. I think it's gonna take a lot of time. But obviously there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of just, pent up aggression. People have their own thoughts about this, but at the same time, I think we all want the same results. We all want a town that is beautiful, safe, that we all enjoy being a part of, that, makes home for everyone. And I think it's also something the public needs to understand, and using the word low income is just, it makes me upset, because if you look at the rules, if you look at Region 3 that we're in, the income that you need to have to be able to live in these units is not low. In any standard in the United States of America, you are actually well above the poverty line. You probably make more than myself, all right? And that, it makes me upset. Dealing with a doctrine that is 30, 40 years old, it's putting, 50 years old, it's putting the onus on you. We have to keep coming back to these plans, these procedures, all these things just to go in another circle, another cycle, and we just seem to get stuck in it. And I think what residents want today and the future going forward is to break that cycle, is to be allow for you as a planning board to have a framework that you can operate from. And I think what we'd like to see is a little more guidance, a little more input from you, and how we can go back to the governing body, hold them accountable. How do we get a citizens commission in place? How do we do that? Because I think a lot of people here just don't know what to do. They want to do, they want to be involved. Everyone here cares about this town. We care about families, we care about the people that are our community members, and I know I do, that's why I'm here today. And I think that that is what we're seeking. It's just more guidance, more access to information. I think that's what made that report. And I know you spent a lot of time on that, and I don't think it's fair for us to judge your and you can finish?
Yeah.
Just a minute or so. I don't think it's fair for us to attack you. You're just doing your job. I think all of us understand. We all live in a professional world where we get, things that we have to do that maybe we don't necessarily agree with, or outcomes that we're just not in charge of. But I think what we'd like to see, reports that are generated, and things that are, decisions that are made, is that they stand up to credible, real facts, right? Real quantifiable, like I said earlier, quantifiables. Right? The fact that you had the metrics, you had gone back and you talked about the days that you counted. That's frustrating to us. It's frustrating when you have those metrics, but they're not being given to us, right? It makes us feel like we're coming to solutions and we're seeing things put in our face that we are just all of a sudden being like, well, right? But I think it's more important that we really do, as a community, find a way to break that cycle, create these frameworks for you guys to do your job, make it easier. I don't think it's fair for you guys to have to sit here till 10 o'clock at night. I know most of us probably don't want to be here either. And I think we're all, again, just seeking guidance, and obviously we want to have that input. But as you can see, we're still all here and we still really care. And I thank you for all that you guys are doing. Really, I do.
Jeff Hannigan, yes, that's good.
I know you know to remain on
Yes. Actually, I was going to thank you as well, too. It's very hard to be there, listen to all this. I'm sure many comments you want to stick a poker in your eye. So I think the town owes people like you who step up and do public services a debt of gratitude. So thank you. My question is, and this is not a rhetorical question. I don't know, but I think it's important for us to consider what are the ramifications of calling an area in need of redevelopment, non-condemnation area in need of redevelopment. Since we've talked about that it goes, the decision then goes to the council about whatever the developer's plan is, does calling this an area, non-condemnation area in need of redevelopment hamper the ability of the council to insist on certain things? Does it obligate the council to allow the developer to bypass some of the zoning rules? What are the ramifications of doing this?
It's actually the opposite.
Okay.
All right,
So,
so, yeah, not a problem. So, to start, I think we're winding down on the public comments, so just to deal with some of it. So, the original zoning back in 2020 with this, right, had 35 units per acre in the downtown corridor. And that was done as a result of a citizen committee, right? There was a group of people came together and they met often, and they worked with the council, they worked with the planning board, and they recommended that zoning for the center district, right, the downtown district. The affordable housing came, they put another overlay over that. So the property's already zoned for what everyone's worried about, right? Multifamily housing. Property's already zoned, right? They can come tomorrow, tear down those buildings and build housing per unit. Mr. Duff talks about how this becomes an abusive process because if you go through this, and to get to your point, Doctor, is the town then has additional tools at its facility. Yes, there are additional benefits that the developer will ask for. He will ask for a pilot. I'm sure he will. Whether he gets it or not, it's up to the council. He will probably ask for other considerations. He may say to the town, hey, it's going to cost me so much, give me the parking lot for free. I don't know, right? But that's what the developer will probably do. But the town also gets additional tools. The additional tools that the town gets is to get to say, hey, we want the building to look different, right? We have generic zone in there, but how many parking spaces, where the access driveways are, what the design are, what the unit count is, what the unit mix is, right? Maybe 101 units, but is it 101 two bedrooms or is it 101 single bedrooms? Age restriction, all those other things that our current zoning doesn't have in place, the redevelopment plan, which is the heart of the matter. That's where I would bring out the pitchforks and the knives and the stakes. I really would, right? Because that's where the deal gets done. That and the redevelopment grant. Apparently I'm out of time though. So I'd have to ask, but to your point, right?
You answered the question.
But all of what I just said has no bearing on my decision on whether or not the planner and I, based upon her testimony, believe that this area meets that criteria, right? That's all the important stuff. The narrow question before us today is that.
It doesn't have bearing because.
It doesn't.
In the sense that.
By law.
By law, it doesn't. He's going to tell me I can't consider any of it. Yeah. I mean, that's the challenge. I know what the next question is. I know what the next hearing is. I know what the next conversation will be. I got to deal with the one in front of me first. That's really the frustrating part on this end of the table.
We see this bifurcated into two questions. One is the dilapidated buildings. I think anybody's arguing about that. And the other is the inclusion of other space for which there is some subjectivity in terms of the interpretation of its obsolescence or its economic vitality.
Meaning the parking lot.
Because so the question then, what's the obligation of the owner to remediate something which is easily remediated? We said it wasn't ADA compliant. That doesn't take anything. So the point is if you look at it as two separate issues, we're now incorporating it somewhat artificially, the parking lot and the bank, in order to make it more attractive for the developer to make a bigger unit. That's fully necessary. So So that's why I think looking at what the plan is gonna be, and which, by the way, we already know, we've certainly seen pictures. We know what the plan's gonna be, you know, that's important. We'll say that, no,
Looking at the evidence presented as to whether or not the study area satisfies one or more of the criteria. That portion of what you said is absolutely relevant to what they're going to do. It's all effectively that they want to do, but projecting or even knowing, quote unquote, what's going to happen in the future with plans for the future. Regrettably, perhaps, they are constrained to have to simply look at the evidence and decide, does it satisfy one or more or not?
I think the question at hand was, how did the study area, use your term, the study area, get defined in the first place? Because I don't think anything can argue about the three buildings, including the other area, into the study area, that seemed to be intended to come to a foregone conclusion.
Wait, can I? Sure. Well, we're just about this is the repeat. You haven't spoken. I haven't spoken. Pass it on, please.
I'm Shredda, 75 Berners Avenue, Bernardsville.
Thank you. You three got or protest, you got to give us a speak.
I do.
Thank you. Please. See.
I just have a question in regards to the structure of the meetings this evening. We talked a lot in by movies and by anybody here in the room. There's two projects on the site on
the docket.
On the docket. At what point do we say, okay, we've defined all the definitions, we've defined all the terms, we've decided if it's an access road, driveway, we understand that. And I was born and raised in this town, I still live in it. And now I'm living in a property where they're making opinions, they may be making opinions, and I want to know, at what point do we move from one property to the next, or is that going to be pushed to the next meeting?
Well, we'll try to close it here and try to address it.
We haven't gotten to that second item yet.
I'm aware of that, but at what point are we going to sit here and then?
If the board votes, I suspect.
We'll start it.
Carry the second one to the next.
Well, we may start it.
We'll start it.
And we'll let
We're trying to get through it right now. And it's to try to cover what's on the docket.
I understand that, and there was two.
The chair is allowing for people to talk simply. That's the chair.
So whatever, what I read, I recommend to the board, because I read what's in the report. You can just say no to everything. You can say the parking lot and everything else. My recommendation is, I read this report. The only part I do not agree with is her analysis of the parking lot. Makes no sense. Her analysis of the other building makes sense. Not the parking lot.
I have a quick question.
State your name again.
Joanne Kavanaugh. The Palmer property across the street is going to be developed, supposedly. How many units are going there? So we're gonna have 68 there, 90 right across the street.
Yeah.
How is our, I mean, there's, you can't get through a summer town. Is any of,
The night is not on what that requires. It's incumbent upon me to tell you that.
No, this.
Governing body.
No, there's not, but you should bring that up in front of the council.
no, we're just trying to get a clear picture. No, I just had a question about the low income, whether the new.
Great.
The challenge is, yeah, that's fine. The challenge is that
My job is to serve the public. I thank you for your opinion. We both do our job.
Sir, go ahead.
Last call.
Beyond the development public hearings,
Stay on topic.
Sir, the floor is yours.
So I'll speak to the number again here, and we're also here. So I'm curious, if Peel and Paint and some remediation of the properties were done, would you withdraw your recommendation for your, honestly? Thank you. That's all I need to hear. I think that's all we need to hear on that piece. And I'll say, absolutely, like when we talked about the experience I've had in the past, landlords absolutely start seeing this trend and start using this on their behalf. And they go, okay, I'm going to let my properties go into decay. Then what they do is they let it go to the point where they claim hardships. They go to remediate the way they want it. I've now milked this property for 20 years. To remediate what it should be is going to cost so much money, it's unreasonable. I have a hardship, you got to help me in. And then they end up winning that case. What is acceptable, what's not acceptable, what we should give, and what we shouldn't give, we will lose every time, right? I'm saying, like, these people are professional negotiators. They will beat us every time, and you will get what you do not want if you open this up and give them these rights to kind of take down the laws that are protecting us.
Okay. Closing the questions and comments section. And you have I'm sure, have a resolution ready.
We did circulate a resolution, the board can decide whatever it decides, again, as everybody no doubt will, they make a recommendation to the governing bodies. You can recommend whatever you recommend, the whereas are there, and what the hearing is for, that's what our content is as part of the public business in the best interest of the borough and in accordance with the law.
You can have discussion.
And legally, I think you picked this up, but if it satisfies at least one, if not more than one statutory criteria, that is the standard. Chart, I think you emphasize.
The chart's helpful.
Summary on page.
Probably my conclusion is the driving force is actually section 3, ends up being, pay attention to that, but you are, namely that, okay, I've got X number of parcels, but they're all part of one thing, and even if one parcel is okay, because it's a total package that has weight. So, gonna have a discussion, or you can comment as you make your vote. Anyone want to generally comment?
Well, I just want to put one thing out for discussion with everyone here. And I will remind everyone that aside from one of us, all of us are appointed. We are not elected officials, and much of the concern needs to be addressed through the elected officials. But parking, but there are several things I can take exception with, but even the parking study that the town I agree, is inadequate, although I did walk the properties on Monday, and when I was there, I was the only car. But I know that parking is an issue. But at the same time, if we pull out the parking lot, does that make a difference? And does that make the project even possible or impossible if that's not included.
I don't think that's your option. Your option is you can take some of the X's out of her grid, according to your belief, and then assess the end result of that grid, and you would vote according to that grid if we're trying to stay on target. So you would say, well, I'm going to drop the X out of the parking lot, right? You know, I don't think, you can't remove it from consideration, if that's what you're asking.
Well, I'm saying
Yeah,
that
but you
think
can
that
say, I
that's
don't
where
agree. You say, I don't agree that there's an X in row D of parking. I don't think that's been proven. But then you still have to look at whatever the whole grid is, and then use that as a piece of your conclusion. I think that's. And the other.
If our recommendation, deviates from what was agreed to in the, the fair share plan, and the council, agreed with that, took our recommendation, what would be the next steps from there? Would that put the borough in jeopardy from a?
We're just
building
giving them advice. It's a formal step. We're responding as we should, and it's our advice. We have an opportunity to comment back to them, but it's their decision whether to agree with us or not, whether to proceed with an AINR. Not ours. We don't have veto power. We're not stopping anything. We're just perhaps saying, hey, wait a minute, if we say no.
It's a recommendation and it's based on the evidence.
Right. But they're in control. Hey, run the town.
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
Council, we could vote yes. Recommendation, not to recommend it. Make that determination. Right? The purpose of this is to allow for a full public hearing, longer than you would get at the council, right? 3 hours in on this topic, which is a substantial amount of time in some respects for what government spends on these things. I do side with the planner, right? I mean, yeah, the buildings aren't completely contaminated and everything else, but they really don't serve an economic purpose, or they don't really fit in the overall long-term goal that this town has had envisioned for downtown. They're not laid out right. They don't fit in with the other aspects. They've always been underutilized, or always been afterthought in how they're laid out or whatever. The parking lot does concern me in some respects. I get comfort that the town does own it, right? So it's not like some private person gets a windfall or whatever. The town still has the ultimate decision whether to include it in any future or part of it or anything else. I gotta have some trust in that they're going to really weigh the factors, right? The library is one of the jewels and essentials, right? And anything that is detrimental to access or use of that, I think would be horrible, right? In some respects. I do believe though that, the buildings are not of a quality or standards that we all want in our downtown. And the bank is a 1970s building. It's fine, it operates. But it's really not what I think we need. The properties are already zoned. I know it's not a factor, but it's just out there that I think this moves that along, right? They were zoned for 5-6 years and nothing has happened. And the affordable has been in place and nothing has happened. I think one of the reasons or purposes of an area in need of redevelopment is to try to kickstart that a little bit more. So I'm inclined to vote yes. I
agree with what you say. The parking lot's the only area that, I struggle with, but overall, the other buildings is really not much question for me.
Okay, members of the public, you're okay? Well, if people can speak up, and the mic, I think, are just.
Sure.
Yeah.
We will.
So I would say, the parking lot's the only area that, that I, struggle with. But as a whole, I'm fine to agree with the recommendations.
Yeah, I think, so lots 10, 11, and 12, so the apartments, I think, we have to evaluate them in the state that they're in right now, and I don't disagree with a lot of the comments around they probably should have been kept better. But the way that they are now, they meet these requirements. The bank, I think there's a bit of obsolescence there, definitely. I agree with you, it's probably not ideal for what we want in downtown. But the parking lot, and I was gonna use the exact same language, the library is a jewel to this town. It's probably like the number one thing that I think we should really be thinking about in that area. And I would hate to see parking, access, anything of it jeopardized. So you guys have said everything that I was gonna say.
In my opinion, the burden of proof was not established for lot 12 for either A or D. I also believe the burden of proof was not established for the bank for the D category. And of course, it was not established, the D category was not established for the parking lot. Nonetheless, it's borderline in terms of the A and D check boxes, not related to space, but just on sheer numbers. H is sort of a kind of a bonus thing, as Steve was trying to allude to. It's kind of a interesting characteristic. But the big thing is we need to pick some place to develop, to redevelop. This seems reasonable that it's a location that's central, that's satisfies a lot of the conditions that our state wants us to deal with. But it's all in how it's implemented and how it's architected and things. Clearly, there has to be access to the library as part of whatever this is, as part of what ultimately happens. And there also needs to be, it's in the zoning, but there needs to be some retail on the first floor. You can't just have residential slammed up against Morristown Road because that violates the vitality options. And so all it's in the details, right? But that's beyond this phase. So the entire project's needed to get the density. You need the parking lot area to get the density to even be tolerable, to get a density of 38, which is close to 35. You've got to have that green area as part of the project. It has to stay green. And you need the area that the parking lot is covering, whatever purpose you obviously access, but however the parking stalls are going to be arranged. And what technologies can be used to optimize parking, shared parking and so forth. There's a lot of stuff that can be done. So I am inclined to, even though it's a toss-up, once you take the items out, I'm inclined to approve the area in need of redevelopment. Any other? Okay, then I guess we'll call for motion.
And we can go right as also to a resolution, the motion, second, we'll vote on the resolution. To find the action or decision to find that the planning board accepts and adopts the recommendation in the study, and hereby recommends that the study area be declared a non-condemnation. Recommend the study be declared a non-condemnation. Applicable ordering are now therefore paragraph of the resolution circulated a few days ago.
Yeah, all the fine print that scrolls by the screen. So take a motion from anyone?
Or not? No, I'm sorry. I'll move it. That the board hereby recommends that the area of the Church Street redevelopment area be declared an area in need of redevelopment for the reasons set forth in the planner's report.
And would you be also moving to adopt the resolution drafted memorializing the same?
Yes, sir. That's what I was reading.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Mr. Marco?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
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 Okay, so great.
Can we take a brief?
We should just kind of collectively decide, first of all, on the board, are you, okay, I think the next one actually should, I think it's easier. But, are you okay with starting it? We still can, and I'd prefer to get it out of the way.
I'm okay starting.
Let's see how it goes.
Facility.
Yeah.
And so we'll take a 5-minute break, but we will resume at 25 after 10 according to that clock. That's